All right, I think we're good here. Um, I think today is going to be a fairly short stream comparatively to the usual ones. So maybe like an hour or two, rather than 4. I started recording the video we've been scripting for the Rust language stuff. Except I think halfway through recording yesterday, my audio recording cut out for some reason. So I need to go back and re-record about half of the video. Well, a little less than half, actually. So the video's at 18 minutes right now. I think the raw recording of the rest was also 18 minutes. So I think that'll cut down into, I think that actually cuts down into half an hour. I think we hit half an hour with the Rust language content, which I'm really happy about. Hey, Selvum, how's it going? One thing that I really want to do, and that I am not sure how to solve just yet, is I want to, I've been really enjoying Typist. Typist is great. I've at this point built tooling on top of Typist, and it's been really useful. So I guess for anybody that doesn't know, that hasn't been on the stream yet, or is watching this for the first time, Typist is this. It is a LaTeX competitor. It is kind of like a PDF creation. It can render to HTML. I think as of 0.13, but 0.14 really made it like a real option to render to HTML. And there's more HTML fixes coming. Whole bunch of different stuff, math, etc., etc. This is just so amazing. I cannot kind of say how good Typist is for the kind of work that I do, which is a bunch of content in multiple formats. You know, PDFs, HTML, web pages, videos, etc. So one of the things that I want to do is not open random desktops, but find a way to integrate Typist into my blog as a first step, and then put it on Rust Adventure. Because the Rust language stuff that we've been building is all in Typist as a doc, and I would prefer to be able to take that Typist doc and put it on Rust Adventure, rather than trying to convert to Markdown or something like that, and then converting. So there's a couple of things that I need to do for that to work. Let's see, if I probably need to be in the books repo to show that work. This has got to be open somewhere already, right? Yeah. You know what all problems can be solved by? Another desktop. all of your problems can be solved if you just open another desktop. So the way that this Typist doc is set up is basically, there's a bunch of stuff at the top. This is commented out, but it's metadata that could go here for like blog purposes and whatever. It's got like headings and yada yada, and then goes through a bunch of functions markup, right? But at the top, there's a bunch of imports, and at the top, there is a custom like document layout function. I also now have my own kind of like highlight function. This is really just for the purposes of rendering to HTML, which is kind of what I'm trying to talk about. So let's get rid of that stuff. And this document basically takes whatever you wrote, puts in a bunch of show rules and things like that, does a little bit of context-aware scripting. So if the target is HTML, do code blocks in a certain way, set the page heading to the top right, things like that. Otherwise, if it's not, or if it is HTML, then don't use the special stuff that only works in PDF. Like that's basically what that function is. And then this highlight function, I guess this is all commented out, so I don't need it. But this is a function that basically calls out to Zabra and does like the same kind of thing. Like if it's HTML, use this special function for like defaulting certain code block types to have certain features like numbering on the sides, like shell, or like something that you're writing in the terminal wouldn't have line numbers, but Rust would. So this is basically a bunch of defaults for doing code and syntax highlighting. I guess I can show that since I actually, let's see, quickstart.pdf. Let's not open that in VS Code. VS Code has been giving me a lot of issues. Let's open the PDF. The PDF's already open. Okay, this is what code blocks look like in the PDF, which I'm reasonably happy about. I'm not like super hyped on, but I've spent a little bit of time adjusting colors and things like that. It's using a night owl theme for the code, so it's like a dark night owl theme on top of a light background, which is not exactly the best, but there's some work that can be done there. And then there's a couple other things where, like, yes, this part on the right is a shell script. It is showing output, but really this should probably be highlighted as Rust and not highlighted like as a shell script. And then I have a couple of other special things, like this code block specifically fails to compile, which is really cool because now I can just like put headings and stuff there. But this really only works in PDF right now. It doesn't really work in HTML. And that's because HTML is so like new, effectively, as like a typist compile target. So all of that said, there is basically the same situation over here, right? This is just like a test doc. I should bring in, I think, that lib, which of course is not actually on the 37th desktop. Let's bring all of this in just for kicks, because I have decided that this is the way that I'm doing my other thing. Main.type is just a test doc, so we could probably just do a bunch of like specific tests here, but I'm not too worried about it at the moment. So right now we need to do like a typist, watch, let's see, not Rust quick start, main, we basically need this, and we need it to not be that. What directory am I in? Oh, it is Rust quick start. Okay, I just named the whole thing the same thing so that the commands would just work. That's cool. I should have remembered that. Okay, so this says failed to write HTML file, no such directory. Where are we putting the HTML output here? Nowhere really. I just want to take a quick look at the actual HTML output. Which would be this. So if I pull up localhost, what we end up with is a fairly unstyled, fairly straightforward, like HTML document. Now there's a couple of issues with the document, but I don't want to try to fix typist issues today. I want to try to work a pipeline for integrating this into a blog. So right now, a couple of the issues that I know I can point out quickly is the images are stored as blobs. So this is data image, base 64 garbage. This is bad. So we need to figure out how to fix that for web deployment. The other thing is that these headings, so like Rust is an expression-based language. If we look at this is like LOC 16. So I need like a context-aware like heading ID generator. Hey, Nixon, you love Typist. I would have never guessed due to the crates you've built and released. More HTMLs. Looking forward to create websites using it. Yeah, I'm super excited. Like, it seems like a real possibility. It's not perfect at the moment, like you can see here. There are things that are not the way that I would want them to be done. But I think that it will get better over time, and it is like early adopter status for HTML output right now. They do have a big warning that says don't rely on this in production, but I've never been somebody who follows those warnings. So my view on this kind of stuff is if I can pin to a specific version or if I can maintain it myself, then everything's fine and I can do whatever I want. So all that said, what I have in this repo is a Rust program. And this Rust program does a couple of things. Honestly, how much of the stuff you do differently can be achieved with purely CSS? The two things I pointed out cannot. So the two things that I just pointed out are the heading IDs need to change. And the heading IDs, I think it's important to have the heading IDs be semantic, right? Represent the heading that they're actually on, rather than being, oh yeah, if you just joined, I can show that real quick. It's real easy. These headings, right? So these things link to an ID that is LOC1, right? This heading is LOC1. This link here links to LOC1. So these IDs need to be like the actual heading slugified headings, right? That's not a CSS change. The other thing is images. Images currently are embedded images in the document, which I could live with, but is definitely not the approach that I want to take, right? Like, I'm fine living with this on my blog for a temporary amount of time, but all of the images that I use on, say, Rust Adventure are Cloudinary images, right? So they can be resized and shipped. Like, if you're on mobile, you don't get a 4K image, like that kind of thing, right? So there are some things that like aren't critical changes, like headings and these images, right? But would be very nice to fix. Those are not the problems that I want to fix right now. What I want to do right now is write a script that will query the document for the appropriate metadata. And I think I already have this running. So if I run this, you can see here that we get a couple of warnings, which is fine. Those go to standard error. I'm just kind of ignoring them because, you know, there's a huge warning here that says HTML export is under active development and incomplete. And I know that, so I'm not worried about it. There are some elements that just like straight up don't work, that get ignored, like page break, which is fine. We'll see more of those over time. And then, let's see, there are a few projects trying to build tech compiler using Rust Go. Are you saying there are not that many, or are you saying that there are a few already? I don't think I would go back to tech. I don't think I would go back to LaTeX. I think Typist is like really, really, really good. You're curious if the IDs will change if you label the Typist elements. The element needs to be boxed though. Let's see, Typist, docs, label, label. So label it like this. That's interesting. These are also the identifiers that I need to use for the front matter stuff. So it would be a little bit awkward if this worked. Let's see, heading introduction A. Referenced, queried, or styled through its label. I guess that is what that is, right? Let's try it. So here in this like little test doc that we have a heading probably right up here. And let's call this some label we made, right? And then I'll throw the watch back up and we can go check out the HTML here. So it would be this first heading if that worked, and it did not change it. It does have the special syntax. I don't think you need to do the hash. Introduction A should be equivalent to the syntax that you just showed. We can absolutely give it a whirl both ways. I have no problem doing that. Right? But they should be equivalent. Yeah, and it's LOC1. Yeah, but I made a PR before that needs the element in box. Oh, but it's for SVG, not HTML. Okay. Yeah. The heading function might have arguments. Level, depth, offset, numbering, supplement, outlined, bookmarked. Let's see. For references to headings, this is added before the reference number. Supplement chapter. So this would be like introduction chapter. I've yet to use Typist. Do you think you should check this out? Also, hello, Chris. Hello, Elementary. Yes, you should definitely check out Typist. Outlined true, bookmarked. Plausible that HTML persists that. Persists what? You do box, with the thing inside of it? That doesn't seem like we should. Oh, you mean use box specifically? Okay, I get what you mean. Yeah. That makes more sense. I thought you were showing syntax. It doesn't change the heading ID in this case. I don't know if the PR you made it into the release 0.14, but it doesn't seem to be doing that currently. Which I think is actually okay. Like fixing this would be fairly easy, right? Because we could write some kind of show rule. Or like show heading it this. It dot. The one thing I wish I had was like autocomplete for these. And then like we could theoretically slugify this, right? Or like I could write a custom HTML element instead of the heading, or like there's a number of things we can do to fix that. I'm not particularly worried about it. I'm assuming that for some rendering of some elements that I will have to write some custom HTML output. Yeah, exactly. Typist has HTML.lm. HTML.lm is a typed API into the HTML elements. So I can definitely, as long as that show rule gives us all of that information, like it.heading level or something like that, we can definitely build our own heading, like H1 tags for the whole thing. The only thing that needs to happen in that case is the ID generation function, or like the slugify generation function, needs to be like stateful, right? Because if you have two things that are like ownership and ownership, you want one of them to be like ownership one or something like that. But I'm not really worried about that. The change there seems totally accessible. The thing that I'm more concerned about is getting it into like an actual blog. HTML element is the basic any element API. There's HTML element name for the typed API. Yeah, fair. Yeah. There's two APIs. LM is the generic one that can let you do anything. And then there's also probably HTML.heading or something like that. I did mix that up when I mentioned it earlier. Which brings us to the part that I don't know how to do. So this in particular is just dumping things in the root here. So these two docs, right? So if I don't do those and I do cargo run, those two files should show up. Rust quick start. Did the PDF not show up? I guess I'm not doing the PDF in here right now. But this is, so the nice thing, this is pulling in the query for the metadata. So if we look at main.type, there's metadata here with the things that I want to put like in my blog for, you know, descriptions, titles, whatever, things that I want to like put in the meta tags. And we can get that from the output because the query goes to standard out. We can slurp that back in through Serday. And then we just kind of like get these values, which is great. This is not ideal because what's happening here is, well, the query is fine, right? But we're using duct to basically call out to the CLI and read standard in, standard out back in. And then use Serday to serialize that. And then like for any compilation, right now it's like the Typst compile with the HTML features, which is not the way that I want to do it, because that means that I have to compile everything to individual files, and then potentially read them back in. But I don't know that I actually have the time to figure out how to use the API is the other thing. So there's Typst HTML, what, rates? Is this going to get me there? Yeah. So Typst HTML. They all have the same README because they're all published from the same repo, I guess. So we got to go to the docs. I think this isn't really like it's supported in the sense that they're open source and like the code is just there. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of like, how do you actually do this? Right? This thing takes an HTML document, but how do you get an HTML document kind of thing? Let's see. By the way, you can pipe input into and output out of using normal standard in, standard out. If you set file name to dash, you've used that to make immediate compilation. That works, actually. That would be better than what I'm currently doing for the HTML, I think. So I would need to set the format on the CLI, right? So let me figure out what that, I'm currently relying on the file name, but if there's no file to output and we're going to dash, then I need to figure out the features, HTML, I don't know, help. Help! Let's see, flags, open, flame graph, output, arguments, all other arguments. Okay, that's what I'm looking for though. That's unfortunate, is what that is. that is not very helpful help text. I guess I'll go to the docs. just look for HTML as a category. So we need to enable features HTML and then format HTML would be the other one. So we're enabling the experimental feature. And then we're also setting the format to HTML. And then we pass in the input, and hopefully we can just read this back. And then theoretically, this is the HTML string. And I didn't mess this up, did I? I think I did, actually. That is not the correct. I don't know why I have those so close together in my source code. Those are unrelated. Let me add a little comment here. Read, this is going to be the HTML string, hopefully, which then gets put here. And we'll process it a little bit. So this should, I think, dump that whole thing out. Output equals empty string. As in, a web backend and someone requests a PDF that runs Typist and streams standard out to them without going through the file system. Yes, cool. I mean, like, technically you're calling the binary, so you're hitting the file system, but yeah, cool. Dan, for some reason, I wasn't expecting you to use Typist for some reason. Why not? Typist is amazing. I'm a super fan of Typist right now. Especially with 0.14. I've been a fan of Typist for a long time. Since they came out, I've had this repo where I just kind of like type stuff that is books that can go into a PDF format. I've got like content on NOM and content on a bunch of other stuff. I put like random rendering stuff into those books. They're not really ready for publishing or anything, but they're just like sitting there with a bunch of like stocked up knowledge written in Typist. And with 0.14 and the HTML output is awesome. I've been building tooling on top of Typist to do various forms of content, and I am just so absolutely excited about this format. So for the output, then this needs to be dash, right? Okay, cool. So now we've got the sketchy part. Does anybody want to guess the sketchy part? Does anybody feel like guessing what I'm about to try to do here to make this work? I don't think trim end matches will work. I think this is the minimal version of that. Don't say regex. Don't say regex. Maybe worse. You know, right? Typist is pretty awesome. You started using it for authoring blog posts as soon as HTML LM came. Nice. Are you the person that did the example of that in the Typist issues? Like, there's an issue that exists that I've seen, or like a demo that I've seen that I don't have exact memories of, but there is somebody who was basically doing that. And I forget exactly where the discussion was. But it was very cool. No, but you know who I'm talking about? Okay. I'm only vaguely familiar with it. I saw it once and I was like, cool, this doesn't seem ready just yet, but I'm very excited that this is happening. Because you can also input the source file through standard in, you prepend a single line that parses inline JSON. So you can pass variables from the code to Typist. Nice. That is super awesome. That is really good to know. I'm very excited about that. I assumed there was a way to get variables in. I don't think I've actually input variables yet. But I was just kind of assuming that you could do that. You use astrotypist. Nice. That's awesome. I wonder what astrotypist does for this. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really look at what anybody else was doing with respect to the crate and everything. I fear that long means he just prepends one line of typist source to input variables. For your respect. Well, we can't really throw any stones here in this glass house that I'm constructing, so. Typist query. So this is coming from a package. Typist TS node compiler, maybe? Nope, that's a types thing. Man, TypeScript is just not my thing. Is that actually types or is that real stuff? It's node compiler is, I think, the thing. It's node compiler. Okay. So we need to look at, I think, this crate. Crate package. Sorry, we're in JavaScript land now. So this is probably the typist package compiled with an API. Which means we should be able to look at the repo and find the Rust. Maybe they have a little bit too much custom stuff here, though. Typist to vec, vec to bbox, vec to canvas, vec to dom, typist to hast. I'm getting less and less interested in this as I see more. Is Typist like Markdown? Gotta check out what it is. Yes, Typist is like Markdown. It is better than Markdown, I would say. But it is like used for the same things that Markdown would be used for. There is a way to get variables in, but only basic key value. Instead, you read the file in your code, prepend a single typist source like let data equals JSON. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're not doing anything more weird than we're doing. I'm literally sitting here trying to trim end matches the HTML tags off a produced HTML doc. So, you know, it is what it is sometimes. Root of the typist.ts repo you found has a cargo toml. I'm not really interested in the cargo toml per se. My recent history has this, right? Right, like they're gonna have a cargo toml in here, but this is an API project. I know I haven't seen anything that indicates it's an API project, but this is almost 100% in my mind an API project. Which means that this isn't going to be particularly interesting in terms of like what is in here, right? So they bring in typist, typist eval, typist IDE, typist PDF, typist render, typist SVG, typist syntax, typist HTML. I, for maintainability purposes, do not want to bring in like 10 typist packages and then try to tie them together using an additional 7 crates of my own. That is, I would say, the proper way to do it, in the sense that, like, if I was producing a library for other people to use, I would probably build something that actually used the crates and the APIs and whatnot. But because this is my personal work and I don't need, per se, anybody else to be able to like arbitrarily download and install it, and it doesn't need to be perfect, the effort to reward ratio of just calling out to the CLI is significant, right? The other thing is we need to, I guess, what? HTML string. What am I going to do? Find windows? I don't really need a parser here. What I need is... What I need is to find this body and then trim everything before it. And I want to do this in the most generic way possible so that if the meta tags change, that it doesn't matter. So maybe we do a body tag search from the beginning of the string and an end body tag search from the end of the string, and we just trim everything before or after. Fair, 100% understand why you would rather keep the number of crates down. I think actually, if I had infinite time, I would want to actually dig into the crates and do the whole thing. And, you know, the problem is that will not take me half an hour. And I know that. You would perhaps suggest using an HTML parser to get the inner content. Why am I best off parsing the HTML? I don't really feel like parsing the HTML is what I want to do here, though, right? Like, first of all, parsing HTML, fraught. But why do you all think that an HTML parser is the appropriate thing to do here? I'm not using regex. I'm looking for a string literal. I'm very aware of the don't use regex for HTML post. This output will not have a body tag before or after the points in the document that I'm looking for. Search and replace is just less powerful regex, but I'm not parsing. You would have personally used an XML parser just so you don't make any mistakes, or it's worth the additional crate. I don't think an XML parser. So the issue with parsing XML in general, or parsing HTML in general, is that there is so much content in this. I'm not checking any of it. Right? There are I don't know, this is like thousands of lines, right? I'm not going to be able to get down to the bottom of this document. This is 700 lines, we'll say. Slight overestimate, but and I don't want to care about anything inside of this. This is just like a blob to me. And this is Also, to be clear, this is a temporary solution. This is not the way that I'm doing this forever moving forward. Typist is going to have fragment support at some point. And at that point, I'm going to rip this code out and I'm going to use the Typist official fragment support, just to be clear. Mostly to be certain you get the right content as doing a regex. Could maybe get something that also matches from inside script tags, but that's fairly unlikely. It's not going to be regex. We're not using regex. Zero regex, just to be clear. We are not pulling in a regex crate. We are not regex parsing HTML. This is not going to happen. Just to flat out say that that's what's not going to happen. If this is a local utility bin, you agree just trimming and panic early if it's not what you expected to trim. Yep, that's what I'm feeling right now. Effectively, the whole site for my personal site will fail to compile if this output is not what I expect it to be. And I'm okay with that. Regex is not just overkill. It's just not the right way to do this, I don't think. Like, and I know that the thing that I'm doing anyway is a shortcut. But I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to add attributes to this body anyway. No, but even a basic string literal place could easily mismatch if you ever have a code block with a body, for example. It really can't unless this body is missing. I mean, like, I see what you're saying. Like, if there's an attribute and then I have a code block inside of it that I'm like rendering HTML raw code blocks, and there's a body tag in there and the front body changes, I do see what you're saying, just to be clear. Right. And I understand going into this, that what I'm doing is non-optimal and problematic. Right. But with all that said, this is generated HTML output, right? And unless I cause it to generate in a way that doesn't have what I expect, this is the output that will generate. I can also put in a safety check here if I feel like it. I can say, hey, I'm looking for this on whatever, you know, something less than 20 lines into the document, and that would also help. But I'm not under any illusions that this is the right solution. The right solution is to not generate the whole document and to generate the fragment instead. HTML is pretty simple. That would be likely a body, although possible that attributes exist on the body from Typist. So the only way that I'm aware of for you to get attributes on the body of Typist is for you to put them there. I guess it could happen that I install a plugin at some point and it changes my HTML output. I think that is a possibility. But for what I'm currently doing, this is what I expect. I don't see a way to do this that is safer and quicker. That's a really weird thing to say. Why? Please justify that comment, because just jumping into chat and being like, I hate somebody is not the vibe here. Isn't that the person that did Cascades? No, that's Sanikov. I don't know who that is. Like, offhand. Yeah, that's not okay, dude. Just as a heads up, like, that's not a thing to jump into chat and say about people in general. I don't know anything about that person. but like, yeah, you understand how this is a weird way to frame that you're having trouble with some programming concept, right? Like jumping into some random stream and being like, I hate this person because they did programming stuff is weird. Trimming from body to body would likely be fine. I'm going to trim up to body and then after body, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to avoid touching anything in between. Which we should be able to do, I think. This isn't the result, is it? This is the index at which this is found. It's the front index at which this is found too, right? I think it needs to be result plus what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I will let the output show us. Right. We'll do a find for body and an R find for body. Right. And it's going to be basically the same code. Yeah, it's all good. I just like people don't know in general, like if you are joking or not, or what your tone is, or anything like that, right? Sure, though you would still just get scraper, which yes is wasted work, but also powerful and easy. We could, I think I could be convinced that scraper would be a better option. I think I could be convinced of this. I haven't used scraper in a little bit. We just need to figure out how to select the body. Fragment select selector, which would be the body tag. And then hopefully we can get the interior HTML. Let's do scraper. I can compromise on adding scraper. Serializing HTML and inner HTML. This says parse fragment, selector, get the selector, .html or .inner HTML. So we're going to want .inner HTML. Yeah, I think scraper I could definitely suspend my little discussion here for. We're going to parse for body. We are going to grab the body. It also makes the code a little bit cleaner because then we're not like doing something from one end and from the other. It's going to be, you mean scraper is similar as what you were talking about with parsing properly? Sorry, it's hard for me to know exactly what people mean. And if the suggestion is go grab an XML parser, that's the wrong answer, right? So it's just going to be body.inner HTML. Like this, right? So our application gets a little bit heavier. We use a few more dependencies and whatnot. I could probably get rid of the Typist dependencies, honestly. I have a couple of Typist dependencies in here for future hope reasons more than actual usage. YouTube is not retrieving enough video. Okay. API sounds like DOM JavaScript API. Most scrapers do, yeah. Inner HTML should give the body inner text without the body. Yep. Of course, it's going to feel a little bit DOM-ish. Yes, there's only so many ways to have an API. Also, just exposing the API for DOM manipulation is good because people are familiar with it. Is Stream okay? I'm getting some notifications in my monitoring software that things are weird. You're fine. You were just a bit slow actually recommending that. Wanted to clarify what you were on about. Yeah. No, I appreciate the suggestion. I think this is the right solution compared to what I was going to do. So we just need to make sure that this actually did trim correctly. So we'll go down to the document down here. And I think it did. It trimmed right at that paragraph tag. So I think we're good. There were some lags on your end, but it's fine now. Yeah, it for some reason, YouTube wasn't receiving the frames or something. I didn't read the full error message, but I wasn't sure if it was like a me sending issue or them receiving issue or a network issue. Could be anything. You mean you've had a look at the Typist docs and it seems relatively doable. You have a compile function, you need to do 4 lines of setup. Video is freezing a bit, audio is fine. Well, I'm glad the audio is fine because the audio is the important part in the sense of like, if audio messes up, that's a terrible experience. But if video freezes every once in a while, that's okay. Yeah, I'm getting about 5% dropped frames, I would say, which is just kind of weird. But it recovers too, so I don't really know what's going on there. I'm not using like my CPU or anything, so it's got to be a network thing. It's got to be like my network is having some issues between me and the thing. You've been using MDX, Markdown with XML, and it's been pretty awesome for content management for your clients. Yeah, I used to work on MDX. That was a project that I worked with Jono and stuff on. Having done that in the past, I would say Typist is almost infinitely better in that sense. MDX is a very specific solution to a very specific problem, right? It's the how do you replace elements on the page with your React components kind of thing. It is, or rather, it could have been, but did not graduate into general content format, I think is my opinion on it. So it is kind of forever stuck in the, if you're using something like React and you want to replace an element with a React component, you can totally do that. There are still really interesting things that you can do with that, but it's not really like an authoring format that I want to give to clients and stuff like that. Yeah, I say that having worked on it in the past. I ran the first MDX conference, things like that. So if you're happy with it, great. I love that. But I think Typist is better. You considered using MDX, but you'd rather not use any more JavaScript than you have to. You've been extending Typist output using just normal Typist functions. Yeah, I think the Typist scripting interface is really, really, really nice. There's a lot of really nice things about Typist. They do a very principled approach to scripting and extension to targeting different formats to having metadata to being able to query the document. Like all of these things are just top tier like content authoring format things, right? You almost got into LaTeX and then saw it and it's written in Rust, so you had to try it. Yeah, yeah. You wrote your CV in Typist. Well, be nice to have it rendered HTML. Absolutely. Sorta and agreed. I like to think it fits any component element type of content. That's MDX, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been away from it for a couple of years at this point, but it definitely could have grown into something different. And it didn't. It's kind of like there were visions for MDX becoming something else that got stunted. Audio drops. Yeah, 1500. Yeah. 8%. 8% dropped frames. Okay. Just a huge dip in connectivity. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it comes back. I don't really have any control over what's going on here. Maybe I pause the recordings. It's not the recording issue though. I don't know. It's network. There's nothing on my end that is doing it. The computer, it's using 1% CPU, etc., like that kind of thing. But the kilobits per second are really struggling. So I don't know. I'll go for another 10 minutes or so, see if it recovers. If it recovers, cool. If not, then yeah, could be a bad route. Yeah, going on. It seems to like go down and then recover. So it definitely seems like there's something outside of my local going on for sure. But we got what we wanted out of it. We got what we wanted out of the stream. We have let me get rid of this. So altogether, assuming anybody can still hear me, we've got the HTML string. We're using scraper and fragment selectors and stuff to grab the inner HTML. So now we have the metadata and the inner HTML. And because we have that, this can now go into the personal site. This is not the personal site. This is the personal site. So this is a Leptos site, which is very cool. And the place that we need to do this is basically going to be, I have an API here for like markdown compilation in doing specific things in specific ways. But we are going to add probably an API file for Typist, I think. And API would be from lib, I think. Typist. So Typist, we don't need kind of a bunch of this. We're not going to need nom. We're not going to need comrack. We're not going to need this. Let me pull this all over to here. And we are probably going to need duct. We're probably going to need scraper. we don't need Typist. Typist just needs to be installed. So this is going to be our situation. And I am going to snag the same versions that I have for Scraper and for Duct. 0. Cool. Yeah. Number of drop frames just going up here. I've got a stack of features here. I think each of these is going to have to be optional. And that means that for SSR, I want dep duct and dep scraper. I think I have Saturday and Saturday JSON. Just watch. Could be a bad route. Yeah. Okay. This is. I don't think that the current networking situation is doing very good. It's getting worse and worse. I see the tick of like dropped frames going up and up. Okay, I did see a warning here. Duct. These need to be guarded behind the typical config SSR. I didn't config this whole module. Maybe I should. I don't think so, but and then this is all stuff I don't need, I think, because we are not going to do a whole bunch of this, but we are going to have this, which is going to be our. This unfortunately takes string as an input. Why do I take string as an input here? Since the bad route message? Yeah. Occasionally it looks like it's recovering and then it like just drops back down to 0. But it doesn't drop to like 0, 0. It drops to like a couple hundred. So it's like, it's just struggling. And it's not on my end. So unfortunate. If it's really that bad, I'll spend another like 5 minutes live. And if it's still bad at 9:10, then I'll probably turn the stream off. Because I don't really have any way to fix this, honestly. I could stop and restart the stream. I think that would just end it anyway. Okay, so when we do certain things, like slug, this does fetch content. This works with actual strings. This is doing a read to string for the actual content. And then parses the front matter and whatnot. So this is pulling the slug and going directly to a markdown doc, which now I need to pull the slug and go to a potentially typist file. I don't have any way to know whether it's going to be a markdown or a typist file, so I have to figure it out. Oh, you haven't noticed any more drops? Oh, cool. That's weird because my metrics are still saying that things are terrible. There's a little metric down here that's just like screaming and on fire, basically. So either my metrics are wrong or I don't know. Typist, yeah. I promise I'm not pronouncing the I. I really do. I was thinking about this the other day actually, because like if you're pissed, like PISSED versus hipster, I don't know. Anyway, I'll figure it out eventually. Regardless, I love the format. It's a great tool. Okay, so we need to figure out here whether we have a markdown file or a typist file. And I think that for the markdown file, we can just try to read it. This is no longer a failure because if this doesn't exist, I want to keep some of the code that I have here, but I guess I'm going to have to do this in forked ways. So if let OK content equals this, we're not going to do like a check and then a read because we don't want talk to. Oh, maybe the delay went up. More buffering means more reliability for bad connections. Yeah. Oh, we're fully back, actually. So potentially if you refresh, you will come up back to live. I don't know why it's back, but it's full back. All green. Everything's fine. If anybody had questions from earlier that we didn't cover because I was dealing with network stuff, feel free to continue to ask or talk about content formats and stuff. If let OK content, read to string. Okay, so this, I can't do this here, can I? Hang on. Sorry, I was distracted by networking issues. Let's finish making sure that this doesn't fail. So I don't think that this is actually going to be a string. I think we have to do the typist query. We do this in slug, and then we do another one in garden. And I think garden is where we use the parse front matter function. This is also doing, I think, a read on the directory. So I will have to change some of this to like look for the files first, figure out if they're typist files or not, and then do something a little bit more. This is like a temporary function anyway, so I'm not worried about it. Will I be brave enough to try and contribute to Typist to help the HTML export get better? I don't know what to contribute to. I wouldn't be against it. Like I'm totally down with contributing stuff. I've done open source, I don't know. Definitely for over a decade now. I think contributing to a project is not the blocker for me. You know? Gonna do some streamer brain coding at the moment. So maybe file if let OK. Let's call this markdown file. File markdown. File markdown. Do this, otherwise do this, right? And all the stuff in here is going to be the markdown specific stuff, just to chop it up completely. And then all the stuff in here is going to be the typist stuff. Maybe your ID slug issue at some point. Oh yeah. I could potentially do that. I don't know that that's considered an issue, so I would have to figure out if people also consider that an issue, because technically the default implementation gives you a unique like anchor point for that for all IDs and is guaranteed to be unique. And the way that I want to do it is kind of just custom, right? So I don't know if that's a valid thing to PR. I could figure it out. Yeah, maybe it's on the table. Because a stream implementing something for Typist would be so cool. Yeah, I think that would be cool too. You're running a window manager in macOS here. What are you seeing? Because the screen layout is beautiful. This is Yabai. I think, do I have that command? I think I have that command. Let me check to see if I have that command, actually. I forget any commands that I have. Streamer bot already running. Yes, I know. I just want to open the commands. Discord test today. No, I don't have a command like that. I should have a command like that. People ask enough. This is the this is the window manager that I use. I mean, aren't typist labels also unique? Making HTML IDs match typist labels seems pretty clear to me. Yeah, but I personally don't want to write labels for all headings, right? So making labels... Also, the labels aren't unique, actually. I don't know if used in that position that they are unique, but I know that you can label like metadata and have multiple front matter blocks in one document, and when you query, you get back like a vec of those labels. So it's not necessarily true that those are unique. Hey, but then you can make a show rule for generating labels for your headings. Yeah, all I'm saying is it's not as simple as like just picking the easiest solution. I think that there are valid reasons actually probably to have the completely unique to be the default. Customization is an option. Labels being used as those IDs is an option. Choosing a completely individual Slugify approach is an option. Like, it's for me, that says it's just more work than just like picking one. Oh, you haven't seen multiple labels? I think I can show that. So here's metadata, right? And it's got a label. And if we... I think I can just cargo run this, right? But I want to not dump the HTML output that we were looking at. Where's my log? Debug metadata. So if I run this, it does give me 2. And I need to, because I'm removing 1 here, I need to show result, actually. Or I need to, you know, as a professional Rust coder, remember to use references. So here's the output that I got because I'm removing 1 out of it. And here is the query result, which gives you 2 typist objects. So labels are not guaranteed to be unique, actually. Which means that if you used the same label for multiple headings, you would still need to have some Slugify algorithm on it. What is huh? Huh because like you can have 2, or huh because I did something wrong? Non-unique label seems like an awful idea. I don't know that you can control it. I think that's the same thing as everything, right? If you start talking about other ecosystems, for example, GLTF and Bevy, like a name component not being unique on the surface feels like an awful idea, But once you start considering that you're going to spawn multiple scenes in or include multiple typist docs or anything like that, kind of keeping things unique in the source code authoring is no longer possible, right? So it becomes a little bit awkward in that sense. And you have to come up with some convention about like either scoping them to specific documents or doing something like that. And that comes with other trade-offs, right? So one of the options that people tend to choose is there can be multiple of them. And then by convention, you either use both of them or pick one or whatever. You've mostly used labels for in-document links. What does the link lead to if the same label exists twice? That's the same issue on the web. If two IDs exist, which is allowed, it has, I don't remember what the actual, like, I think it's left up to each browser which link that goes to. I think they all just happen to do the first one. But I think it's left up to the browser implementation. You're curious what happens if you do front matter. Yeah, exactly. I think you're a little behind on the stream, Oscar. Why is there two same objects anyways? Because I put them there. Right, they don't have to be the same. Right. GJK, something else. So they don't have to be the same. What happens if you have duplicate labels and do @label? I don't know the answer to that. We can find out. So we've got some label we made. Let's do some label we made down on cargo too, I guess. And then at the top, what do we need to do? We need to do some link to some label we made. I think that's the answer, right? And then I need to compile this actually. Features, PDF, this should work. Some label we made occurs multiple times in the document. So if you use it as a reference, I think it gets checked. The other question I have is, this gets checked. No, it doesn't. So there are places you can use labels that give you multiple of them, and there are places you can't use labels like that. So if we don't reference it, right? Oh, cargo run is not what I wanted. Typist compile. Oh, right. So it works. If you don't reference it, it works. If you do reference it, then it needs to be unique. That's how it works. Oh, you use labels to get a list of links, then made a table of links? Yeah, like for an outline? Yeah, for sure. I think this implementation actually makes sense in general. If you have labels that are the same, but you aren't referencing them, then it's fine. But yeah, anyway. It is a little bit more complicated than just, picking one and doing it. You were wondering because you were sure you'd run into the case of your bibliography having the same name as the label you wanted to use and getting an error. That must have been it. I don't know. I haven't been a heavy bibliography user yet. I want to specifically actually find a bibliography. I want to actually find a way to export my bibliographies from Zotero, because that's kind of where I keep everything. But I haven't gotten around to that yet. Maybe a different stream. Okay, so we read this file in. If it's a markdown file, then we do the markdown file thing. We called this content, that's fine. And then this gets content, which is cool, right? And then the alternative is we now have to like check to see if there's a typist file here. No markdown file, checking for a typist file. Typist in general is so well thought out, way ahead of everything else in your opinion. Yes, absolutely. Typist is so good. I'm so happy with it. Zotero to BibTeX exists, and BibTeX Hyagriva does too. Oh, cool. So Zotero, BibTeX, BibTeX Hyagriva, Hyagriva Typist is going to be my workflow. You can use BibTeX and Typist too. So maybe I'll make a choice. I tend to like writing Hyagriva, I think, but I'll figure it out. Because Typist has been so useful for that other Rust language video that we've been making. I want to put Typist on Rust Adventure as well and transition all the workshops to be Typist docs. So I already have a workshop. I have the Flappy Bird workshop that's already written in Markdown, so I can just convert it all to Typist and see how that works. And I hope that when doing that, I can use a bibliography instead of having all of the inline Markdown links, which I think would be really cool. I think Hyagriva is Typist's bibliography format, right? Did they make that? Yeah. So, I mean, if you like Typist, then it's worth looking at, their bibliography format. I don't know in general, but yeah. You could also add a download as PDF button for the workshops. Exactly. Yep. Download as PDF. All of those workshops can also go into a book, so I can give people hard copy covers or paperbacks of the actual workshops with all the screenshots and all the code and everything. So if you're going on a trip or on a train or whatever, you can put it on your Kindle, or you can have a hard copy, or you can visit the web, or you can watch the video, or you can read the HTML doc, or like this spectrum of accessibility for the content is really nice. But have to get it working on my personal site first. So this is going to look for that typist file. I think that we aren't using parse front matter at the moment. So let's get rid of most of this, comment this out, and drop a to-do in here. Because I don't know exactly what this is going to look like. And then this is get string for KDL. We aren't going to have KDL for typist, so we'll get rid of that. Compile, we haven't written yet. This takes an input that is a string and goes to a string, but this is really going to have to be like a path buff. I guess it doesn't have to be a path buff. It could be a path. But we are going to have to construct this because this is going to be like a typist duct call, right? It's going to be this, followed by this. This is our compile call at the moment. So we need input to be that string. We have some unwraps here. We don't need them to be unwraps anymore. Why does that? Anyway. Maybe some interesting error type in the future. I don't know. I don't really feel too strongly about this. I don't remember which error handling library I have installed here either. Maybe I don't have one. Maybe that's why. We're going to Boxstein error this. I don't remember the last time I actually wrote a Boxstein error intentionally. And then we need body dot inner HTML is the return type, right? Yada, yada, yada. And then this can't return that because it's Boxstein error into that server error. So we kind of need to map the error here. Lon, have you used Typist for something extensive? Sounds like you're pretty familiar with it. You compile from standard in with Typist so you can have it be a string. Oh, true. True. But then I would have to keep all the Typist content in one file if I did that. And I don't want to do that. Right. I don't want to force myself to write all documents that are Typist in one file. So I think I'm going to avoid the standard in for now. And try to lean on the Typist CLI to get some of the nicer features that let me use multiple files and things like that, and includes and whatnot. Because I'm going to want to have like one library, I think, that I include from that does a bunch of the like HTML elements and stuff. So I'm going to need at least 2 files for every blog post. Well, one file that is the import and then all of the rest. Oster, hope you don't mind me butting in, but have you used Typist for making a presentation? Yeah, like Beamer style stuff, right? You also use it to make open graph images. You use it for open graph images? That's interesting. So like SVG kind of stuff. That's cool. You've done some presentations. It's a little bit difficult to lay out things, but they are okay, I think. If you compile from standard in, you can still set the work turn. Oh, really? Huh, maybe we do that. Maybe we do that. And then the workdir is like the root of the cargo workspace. That sounds nice. What is the... Didn't know you could do that. Let's see. Typist. I'm going to have to look at the docs. The help text doesn't serve me very well. CLI. Tutorial overview reference. Syntax, styling, context, data loading, PDF. Where do I... Where do I find the options that I can send into this? Maybe workdir. Work directory. This is not going to be on the site, is it? Okay, let's go Typist CLI. This doesn't have a Typist CLI. compile, watch, fonts. Oh, you mean on Duct? You mean for like, so by default, you're saying that if you use a string, it will use that workdir to look for the other files. I don't need to set an option. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying now. I thought you meant it was an option to Typist. You know what grid is? Tables are just easier. Yeah, I mean, people use tables for website layout for years. You studied physics and wrote all your projects in Typist, including the bachelor thesis. Nice. That's awesome. Duct, Rust, Duct. Let's see. Capture the standard in. Where's standard in? Modules, Unix, command. Echo output.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Forgot I had that set up, honestly. By the way, Chris, discovered you last month trying to see how Bevy worked, and I have to say I very liked his channel. Nice. I'm glad you're enjoying it, finding it useful. What are you doing with Bevy? Reader handle. I think this just gives back a command, right? CMD. Pre-command. I think it's just a command. Yada yada, standard IO, no. I don't send command or send input to commands very often. Is that an assistant voice? I don't want to say the name. It's Amazon's product from a long time ago. I basically use it as a speaker. I don't actually use it as a kind of assistant or anything. You think it would just be currenter? Let's check it here first. I'm not convinced that command gives me the access to do that, so we might need to use something else. I was kind of using command as a shortcut, but I don't know that this is a... See, the function... Expression, there we go. That's the page that I'm looking for. Standard in bytes, I think. Use bytes or string as input for the expression. Yes, this is what I wanted. You were experimenting with game programming, nothing very concrete. You like the approach of components and everything? Yeah, Bevy's awesome. Yeah, since you like Typist and Bevy, have you checked Velist? Velist is very cool. Oh, no idea about the command macro. Yeah, I don't think it returns a regular command, so yeah, as such is life. I have to figure out what their special API for it is. But doesn't that mean Amazon is listening to you every day? I stream every day too. So you are also listening to me every day. Honestly, I don't know. It's something I go back and forth on. I use it as a speaker. I could just get it, probably a different speaker. Does somebody know if you can tag somebody in chat? You're trying to answer someone and you can't. I think they can just read it, right? Also, I think you can do @ right? Yeah, I mean, being honest, the device listening to me is not high on my list of priorities at the moment. Okay, so this would then be dash. This would be dash. This would be dir, some dir, and standard in bytes for the actual string, and then we read. So that means read to string. I'm doing this in my test project first before I port it over to my actual blog. Read to string. This, where is this going to be running? Is yikes. I really only run it from my cargo workspace. But I've had dreams of compiling the binary in the future. So I'll figure it out. For here, we can use include bytes, which should give us main.tip. Which is the wrong place for it to be because it needs to be in the Rust quick start source main.tip. So here's our bytes. Here's sumdir. Sumdir. I don't know what the default is, so we're just gonna figure it out. File not found. For import vendor. So it gets the bytes and works with them, which is good. And then we need effectively the place the typist document is. Is that the workdir that we need? I feel like there's something else that needs to happen here. Yeah, for ductus is that, like that. Yes, using the @ symbol. It should also highlight if somebody mentions them. Too difficult to deal with products and companies that don't respect user privacy nowadays. Yeah, just not the thing that's on my list at the moment. I'm not going to buy a new one. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to buy a new one. But it's just the speaker that I have in here at the moment. You're sorry, by the way, you feel like you're talking too much. You're fine. You're good. It's chat. It's a stream chat. You're allowed to talk. Current-dir, yeah. You should just need the main file to standard in, the work-dir set to type of stuff you want to include, and standard out as HTML. I think I want to set the working directory to the root of the project, but the other thing that comes up is typist can't require stuff outside of the working directory. This could be standard and currenter. I think this is a result, but we'll unwrap. Which means that then this still doesn't work, but this is running from the root, right? Where is this running from? Because this will change based on how we use it. That's the root. Perfect. I think the root is fine for right now, because really all I'm going to do is it's a little bit awkward, I think. But I don't see a way around it. Yeah, I know. But in my head right now, I'm thinking through the include paths and how I want to write them and stuff like that. Because if we have main.type here and we're using cargo run and this goes vendor type, right? This is in Rust quick start. Source vendor, right? Which means that now the did I mess this up? Vendor term.type, copy relative path. Put that in main. If I type the right main, this, right? So the typist document is invalid now, which is annoying, right? And the file actually doesn't get found anyway. So let me disable this little term thing that I have at the bottom here for a second. And work with lib, because lib is a little bit more straightforward. Right, and this would be this, theoretically, right? What am I missing? Stompfather. You just have a folder in your project for typist files, yeah. Late to the party. Is Typist running a static site from the type files? That's what we're working for. Yeah. Got to make some adjustments to make that work. Got to integrate it into my blog to make it work. But yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, just set the working dir for your website, the blog posts are in source content posts, and your template is in public. You need to use relative path to import other files. Yeah. Wait, you're saying I need to use relative path anyway? That doesn't find it. The path is relative to the working file, except for the fact that we're passing the working file in over standard in. So there is no working file, right? There's no working file path. So saying it's relative to standard in doesn't work. So what is the path is really the question. And I wasn't able to find it in the docs, which is why I'm kind of like poking at it right now. Because theoretically, Still logging this out, right? Here's our log. This is somewhere. See, fragments, quick start, source. Oh, fragments, quick start, source. Hang on. That would imply that this was the right move. Oh, you know what? I'm hitting myself with double issues, actually. Sorry. I'm hitting myself with the issue of having done this for the query and also having done this for the code. Sorry. The we're just going to do this for the moment. So we're getting different errors. I'm hitting one error in one way and another error in another way, and I'm bouncing back between them is what's happening. Which is, you know, just kind of life sometimes. Okay, cool. And then the assets are here. I think that the assets, I have a root assets directory or like a root static directory that I can use on this site. That I will theoretically be able to turn into HTML at some point. Yeah, it's showing you where the file is supposed to be. Yeah, the issue was that I had two Typist commands, and I didn't change one of them, and I changed the other, which meant that one include was wrong in one, and the other include was wrong for the other. And I didn't realize that it was happening in different places. You've actually explicitly copied the current process end into the Typist command and in your code, different projects. So that might not apply to you. Interesting. Yeah, I got it anyways. It was user error. as it so often is. But this is the command that we want to use for this. So compile with the string should be this instead. This will be the HTML string. This will be the bytes. In this case, this is the, I guess we'll call this string slice again. I think this is in 2 bytes, right? Yeah, perfect. So we just get to pass in and let deref coercion take over. Why am I using standard in anyways? Because this is running as part of a larger static, or not a static site actually, but it's running as part of a larger build. So the entire website is built on Leptos. It uses islands on the client side and things like that. So I am just using Leptos's static route support to grab these files, to do listings of them, to do things like that. The reason I'm using standard in is because I am not intending to do a one-to-one Typist HTML file process. We're passing it into standard in because all we get is the slug from the URL, right? So we go get the file. The way that I'm dealing with my other markdown files is similar, where we get the content of the file here, and then we pass it in to parse the front matter and grab the actual content. So in some places, I only need the front matter, and in some places, I only need the content, or something like that. So the thing that I end up with is basically a string of something because of that, and I want to pass that into the Typist CLI, which I can do over standard in, while still enabling it to actually include all of these Typist files. That's the TLDR. I have to figure out which file it is, figure out how to read that file in. I don't want to deal with Typist error messages from the CLI, right? So theoretically, we could pass it in as a file location, let Typist find it as an input file, and then process it. that presents us with a couple of problems. One of which is that if we do it that way, you can't include typist files from outside of the like typist workspace, right? So where does my like lib.type files and stuff go? May or may not be an issue. But also, I don't always need that file. Sometimes I just need the content. So being able to take strings and deal with them like this is better. Typist prints errors on standard error anyway, so if you only read standard out, you don't get errors mixed into the HTML. Yeah, I'm not worried about them being mixed into the HTML per se, but I don't want to have to rely on the difference between a typist syntax error and a file non-existence error, both being reported by the CLI. Right? I want to know if this file exists first, and I want to know that it's a typist file first. I don't want talk to issues. So the right way to do that is just to try to read the file immediately, get the file into memory, and then pass it to the typist CLI. Talk to is time of check versus time of use. So if we do like a file exists for the typist extension, and then later we use it, theoretically that file could go missing in that time, in which case we would still have to handle the error with the CLI. Use rsync and copy the file from another location and sync on every change. What do you? What's that a solution to? Also, this allows you to potentially modify the typist source at runtime before passing it in. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. The logic here is also just kind of a little bit messy. So don't pay too much attention to the man behind the curtain, so to speak. Okay, so we need to do typist query with these same arguments, right? Because these effectively need to be the same thing. And then we grab this as well. So we have our front matter function in here somewhere. Right, parse front matter gets a string. This is not a nom result because it's not a nom function. Which is why you needed to use standard in to be able to prepend the big JSON blights blob. In your project, typist is basically used as a report and invoice generator. Yeah. I think if it was easier to use as a crate, that would be very cool. But it's not causing me any issues in this project, so I'm not worried about it. So this is going to be query, right? And our query here is for front matter after input with target and features. This makes me feel a little bit weird, like having dash dash. Typist query for this. Hopefully that works. And then this is input, and this is read, and that's our HTML string. This is not HTML string, sorry. We don't need the format here. I don't think. We just need the features. Why do I have target here for query? I forget exactly why I put target here. That's different than format. So front matter dash dash, and hopefully it reads everything correctly. And then this is an option content metadata. So this is like .ok. Right? Am I wrong? Result string slice option content metadata. Forget why I did that. You mean, yeah, it seems usable as a crate, just not documented that well. You actually just look at the test and they show the full encode compile setup. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's possible. We could definitely do it. I think this is the most straightforward option at the moment. And the thing that I don't want to happen is to use the crate and then have it like require additional setup to match the features of the CLI, because the CLI is where I actually write everything. Okay, standard invites, HTML string. This is not HTML string. This needs to come down. This needs to happen. We don't have typist object or front matter defined in here. These are just like two custom structs that I made. I don't know that these are like the quote unquote right structs to use. But there's definitely going to be like a typist front matter. And we can convert that into a regular. And this is standard out. And this is typist front matter. This theoretically debugs the results. We have access to info, so maybe I info it instead. This question mark, or maybe we don't have access to info here. I think we should. Oh well, I'll debug it for now. Okay, so parse front matter. That's happening in here. And this is doing a check to basically say, if there is front matter, do something or not. I think this can actually be written differently. This feels a little bit messy, but you know, that's how it is. And then this compile needs to come from typist compile. So up here, we have an import for compile somewhere, probably in this function because it's server only. Right, create API markdown, create API typist. And content, we don't have content, so we need to find the file here, which we can do like this. So I am going to say that for typist files, they are going to be in a directory. With a main.type, maybe, or maybe slug.type. I think I want to be able to separate these into multiple files without too much issue, so I think I'll just put them in a directory. You're irrationally scared of breaking the typist file by editing it? Interesting. What am I using to recompile automatically? This is Leptos, so cargo Leptos. Just the typist CLI and watch mode. Or maybe you were asking them, yeah. Or maybe you were asking her. I'm using cargo Leptos because this is a Leptos site, which I still have plenty of errors in. This needs to be, you know, refixed here. So this is going to be typist parse front matter. And what? I messed up what front matter is, right? So bring this over here. And now I'm looking at markdown compile server is the wrong the wrong thing to call this, so we'll call this Typst compile server. And then compile takes the input string slice and returns a result box-dine error. That's this. This is not going to work for a return because we return server function error here. You were wondering because it lacks the one quality you think a library compile needs, not hiding errors above warnings. Yeah, I mean, it does do that, right? I do have to say I'm not the hugest fan of Cargo Leptos, specifically because the job it takes on is that of compiling two different Rust projects. So there's a Rust project that effectively needs to get compiled for the client, and there's a Rust project that needs to get compiled for the server. So the issue here is actually it has even more depth than just hiding errors above warnings, because errors can happen in one project and then the other project can compile and hide it with its own errors and warnings. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that I can't have two terminals that output errors for their respective projects. Like I would love to have this in a Tmux that is doing the client and the server separately. Such is the way that it is, though. This is the default tool for Leptos. You can do it without. I originally, before Cargo Leptos existed, I was doing it manually. I tried to switch to Cargo Leptos because when I talk about things like how to do Leptos sites, it's always going to be like, hey, go use Cargo Leptos, right? Can Leptos not deal with being compiled and run normally? It can. But setting up a custom build process brings me away from the default experience of using Leptos, which means that when I talk about it, then I always have to say, oh, I'm using this custom thing, rather than just using Cargo Leptos. I do. This is also the other thing to mention is that this is my personal private repo that nobody ever deals with. And that's part of the reason there's so many warnings here. I do not clean the warnings up in this project in general. So it's less of an issue if you're following better practices. But this is absolutely just like the soup that I had time to put together for my personal site, you know? You mean you'd hope you can just cargo run the server and it serves the latest version of the WASM that's available? To some extent, yeah. I mean, like, yes, but that WASM has to be built first, right? And if you're doing server and client side rendering, for example, those pieces need to match, right? You don't want to run a server, serve old WASM, and then have it try to hydrate something that doesn't exist anymore. So if you are doing something where you're server side rendering and you're trying to do things on the client relating to that server side structure, those things need to match, right? You can work with them being out of sync for a little bit, but that's not a good way to work. That said, I need to fix my compile errors. I box signed error this. This is an option, so we'll do okay or. Write a little error message for myself. This compilation needs to get turned into a server function error. Map error. Server function error. Server error. Can I just stick error in here? This is fine for me for now. It's not ideal Rust code. This is some of the worst Rust code you'll see me write, by the way. My personal site, some of the worst Rust code you'll see me write. I am very, very up on it, trying to do things correctly when I'm teaching stuff. But it's also important to realize that, like, you can very much just scattershot Rust in very loose ways. Like, and that's totally okay from that perspective, right? Parse front matter. Parse front matter accepts the string slice. Why is this not accepting the string slice? Because this is still a result. I think we can just return this so that we get our string slice. And then this returns string slice option metadata. Because theoretically, I think the idea here was that there could be extra, because this was originally a non-parser for the markdown stuff. That's how I'm pulling the KDL out. So this is no longer really necessary, and this can just be the option, I think. Which means that this can go away, and this gets a lot cleaner. So content metadata, right? Content metadata. That should fit there, though. Why doesn't that fit in that hole? Why doesn't it fit in the square hole? Box9 error here. That's why we can't return it. Expected markdown content metadata. Found typist content metadata. I need to unify those two types. That's what I need to do. Those types need to have the same kind of output. So really, this shouldn't be redefined here. I need to pull it in from Markdown and then move it out to a shared file later. These are supposed to be the same thing. It's like a post metadata. It's not a Markdown metadata. And then we're left with Box9 error. Let's see, this compile just returns a string and assumes correctness, I think. I think we will go with that, actually. I'm going to unwrap this. I'm going to unwrap this because this is a compile time issue. So if there is issues in the typist content, this will fail when I build the site. Thus, everything will be fine. And the scattershot Rust is still so much better than any leaking around in TypeScript. Yeah. Yeah. You know, scattershot Rust, like, man, I forget what the way they framed it. There was a talk at Rust Week 2025. See if I can find their talk title. Schedule, conference, workshops. I think it was day 2. No, maybe it wasn't. Waffles talk was good. Reinventing trade objects. Maybe it was day 1. Is it day 1? Am I losing the plot here? Holders, the Beppy engine action. That's not the title they used for their talk. That's why I wasn't searching for it. But Joe basically gave a talk on, they used a term like Dionysian Rust, but it matches the expectation that I have here, which is like this scattershot Rust, this like, you can kind of just write stuff and it can be very, very messy. And Rust gives you the tools to refactor that into maintainable code later, which is really, really nice. Bit of a lunch break. Nice. Let's see. Did that work? Are we done? We're not done because it won't show the page, but I think also this is that. This is, I think it said 3. So this is theoretically the site running with Typist active. Of course, I have a favicon issue for my own issues, but I can fix that later. That's an ongoing, persistent issue that is unrelated. So our goal then is to get this to fail, I think, because we need a document that basically does this and has like a title in it, right? So in content, I'll make a new folder. This folder will be, I don't know, what's the next post I'm going to write? I've got a couple of them in, let's do an introduction to Weasel. Let's change that to be a Typist doc. And then I said I was going to do main.type here, right? Of course, I made that a directory because VS Code is so helpful. Type. Okay, so we've got this. This is going to have some titles and stuff. This is, I guess, an introduction to Weasel. Maybe that's not the right name that I want to use, but it doesn't matter. An introduction to Weasel. I don't know that this is Bevy or Rust related. I mean, like it could be Bevy related. Maybe I have another one that's called shaders. Who knows? The byline. This is not really a byline. This is like a short description, but Weasel is a superset of WGSL. I guess we cap all of them. Okay, and then we have like Weasel is great. And then like print line, here's some Rust. I'm trying to just like get a couple of Typist idioms in here. We haven't done an includes yet, which is fine. So we just have this doc. It has some metadata. It is a document with a code block. I think all of that is all that we need. Right? Title, slug, tags, byline. It doesn't have an image, which is fine. It doesn't have a post date, which is fine, because this isn't getting like published just yet. This metadata should fail. I think we have to go to the URL right now because we didn't do, right, introduction to Weasel. Introduction to Weasel. I have to break this. Hang on. Introduction to Weasel. Let me grab the byline that I used here and put it over here. Let me, I guess, grab this random bit of content and then delete this file entirely. which may throw my little server into a loop, but is fine. Has some links. Great. This is also, so one of the reasons that I wanted to use it for this project specifically is because this project specifically has images that I want to use. So this will force me to work with images correctly in Typist. So this breaks because we unwrap. Unexpected argument dash. That's for the query stuff. You didn't understand anything from Waffle Stock. Maybe you should bother them, or you should bother it to explain them. Yes, you should bother it to explain that to you, for sure. Let's see. Metadata. So our unwrap is happening on query. Options input selector. So selector has to come later. So I broke the selector. Its talk was really good though. Yes, it goes by it. Yes. Typist query features HTML target, HTML front matter, typist options input selector. So input has to come before selector. And then I guess we don't have output because output is always standard out. Then we refresh this and it breaks again because here's our typist object, which is sick. We got title, slug, tags, byline, and a couple of image and URL stuff. This breaks because we did a to-do at the bottom here. So this typist front matter into our content metadata. Our content metadata looks like this, which is all options, which is really unfortunate. I should change that to not be just like all options, like oops, all options. So we can just return this as content metadata in the meantime. I think this is returning an option, right? So let's fill these struct fields. Let's do just the barest minimum that we need to do to get this to work. Some of these types are going to be wrong. I let my finger off the keyboard. That's what I get for using a point and click editor. So these are going to be wrapped in some. They should basically never be none, right? But I took a huge shortcut on like making it work. Here's Typist. Return none. I don't know. You want me to return none from the function? In any case, here is a Typist doc on my webpage with all of my styling. So you can see here that we've got the 1, 2, 3 list items. We've got the, in this case, Typist syntax highlighted code blocks. These are obviously like markdown links that we could change into being non-markdown links. Where's my actual Typist doc? Here's my actual Typist doc. So this should actually be like link weasel lang.dev, right? Because I just copied this over from and these both have to be strings actually. Other way around. Did I mess up? Isn't that the right link syntax? I thought it was reversed from Markdown. Yeah, parens followed by... Oh, and then that's just children, so I don't need to... Yeah. You mean reversed as in I put the URL in the wrong spot, not reversed as in... which you are absolutely right. Thank you. Bevy. Okay. And I don't think that this will change automatically because we have a panic that is unrelated. This is like, because of the way I set up my URLs, occasionally a favicon request will automatically sneak through in the browser and it will break. So this is a Typist document. On my blog with complete metadata and styling. So sick. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Kat. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, that's sick, right? Let's see if we can use let's pull in Zabra here. I know Zabra has like iffy support for what I'm about to do, but let's do Zabra. I think it'll do numberings by default. Highlight lines 1. Excuse me while I use my janky reload here. I didn't import Zabra. So that's an interesting thing, I think. Nope, I messed it up again. Never mind. Ignore me. I'm just in the middle of my... There we go. Now this is going to be super weird because how do I frame this? The styling for this is absolutely not set up to expect this kind of content to come in. I actually have no idea like what this is supposed to look like, so to speak. I know that the background colors are all wrong, etc., but this is all fixable stuff, right? The important thing is that we could pull in whatchamacallit. We could pull in a Typist package. Yeah. Well, it's Zebra and raw or something. It's something like that. It's Zebra and raw content. Zabra, the term Zabra is a combination of Zebra and raw. I think specifically because they like zebra striped patterns in code blocks. I don't like zebra striped patterns, but all the other features are fantastic. He ended up using hype raw for highlighting, and then the very next day 0.14 dropped with native code block support. Yeah, I think that the native highlighting and whatnot is great, but it doesn't do things like highlight lines, as far as I'm aware. This is also not, well, actually it is, right? You can see the blue horizontal highlight here, but the styles are all messed up. But if I open the PDF, this is all Zabra rendered. So it lets you put in a header, lets you put in line numbers. You pronounce it like zebra with a W at the end, like zebra W, but it's zebra and raw. So it's zebra, right? We can have the pronunciation. Zebra, not zebra. You're talking about just putting the emphasis on a different part of the word. Zebra. There's going to be a whole bunch of clips on me on the internet just saying random words 50 million times, trying to figure out how to pronounce them. Cool. But like in using the package was the point. So that's very cool. I think there's another one here that does QR codes, but I don't know that QR codes are... Since 0.14 just dropped, I'm not sure if anything actually has HTML support, you know? You don't by any chance know how to read IPA. I know how to pick my way through IPA and listen to the different words and figure out how to read IPA. But I can't, I probably can't read it off chat. You could try. I know a couple of them, but I don't know everything. The way you pronounced it originally sounded nothing like zebra is all. Zebra. Oh, because I pronounced it like zebra, right? IPA is the International Phonetical Alphabet. It is like a way of determining how how words are supposed to be said. I guess going to some random site isn't that bad. But like, here's a bunch of consonants, and for the IPA, this is how you would write them, and this is what they sound like. Like it's a whole like, how do you actually pronounce things kind of thing. Cool. So I am super happy with this. It's about 10:30. I need to finish recording the video for the language video. I think I'm going to ship the language video tomorrow. I think with this Typist stuff, I'm going to take the code I wrote here, clean it up a little bit, port it to Rust Adventure, do a deploy of Rust Adventure, get Typist working on Rust Adventure as well, try to ship the video tomorrow morning, and we'll see what happens. In any case, I hope you all enjoyed this adventure of trying to get Typist onto my blog. I think that with a couple of things that I need to change here, specifically the image handling. I need the images to be URLs and not data, like base64 encoded embedded, which I think I can do. And then I'm going to leave the headings for later, and I will fix them at a future date. And I think this is good. I'm pretty happy with this, honestly. Zebra. So Z is the important part. Zebra. I think that's what you wrote, right? I don't actually know. I have to go check it. In any case, thanks everyone for hanging out. I think that this was a super successful stream in terms of the thing that I wanted to get done. I just kind of wanted to, you know, I was going to do this work anyway, and I decided why not stream it with everyone. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. I'm super excited to have Typist support on my blog now. I'm going to write things in the future in Typist, which means that I should also be able to like have potentially PDF downloads for things that I write for everything, which is very, 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 very cool. And yeah. Thanks for hanging out, and I will catch you. We'll stream again tomorrow morning. That's what I'll do. Saturday morning stream for something to do with Bevy, I think. I haven't decided what yet, but Saturday morning is Bevy stream. So have a good rest of your day, y'all, and I will catch you tomorrow morning.